Good morning. Happy St. Patrick's Day out there. It's March 17th. It's very early in the morning here, 3 something or other, not even 4 o'clock yet. What I've been wanting to tell you about is the Kennedy assassination. I'm pretty much going to solve that for you right now. I can't give you all the details. I don't know all the details. Guy Banner pretty much solved it. We didn't listen to him very well, and there was a massive attack against his character, against the man. There was a senator from Texas who spoke about the fact that the American people were not ready for the truth. They weren't ready for it. This conversation was in a limousine, and the man who wrote about it was I still haven't unpacked from last year and repacked my books, but there's a wonderful book that pretty much explains this thing in detail. It does not spell things out. It does mention this particular conversation. The book is Final Judgment by Michael Collins Piper. Michael Collins Piper lived a pretty short life. He did an excellent job. He had a problem with alcohol, and he died rather young. I think he was about 50 years of age. Senator Tower, I believe was his name, very powerful senator from Texas, said that the American people weren't ready for the truth. So let me tell you what that conversation was about. The man who actually ordered the assassination of President Kennedy did so in order that he could get nuclear bombs, nuclear arms for his country, and that would be Israel. He was the prime minister of Israel, a little guy, a short guy. And as I said, when I don't talk about these things, I tend to lose some of the facts and have some trouble accessing those things. The fact that I want to get across to you is that there were 2 CIA operations concurrent in Dealey Plaza that day that Kennedy was assassinated. One CIA operation was going to be a false flag, and that false flag was going to be an attempted assassination on President Kennedy, an attempt on the president's life in order to be able to justify invading Cuba. Okay, they've been trying to manipulate us into war back then. They're doing it today, folks. Pay attention. This is nothing but a manipulation into war again. Do not let them do it. We've got to put a stop to this stuff. The sooner we start ignoring Washington, D.C., the better we're going to be. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Our founders gave us the proper form of government for us. It was complete. We don't need to add to it. At this point, we need to take away all of this other BS that's been added. As I said, 2 CIA operations. One, E. Howard Hunt was involved in, and they tried to frame him up, and he wasn't going to allow it. He was in charge of, I believe he was the one in charge of the false flag operation to fake an assassination attempt on Kennedy. The problem was there was another CIA operation that overtook that operation and whacked the president. They killed him. If you want to know the names of the shooters, most of them are available in a book called The Elite Serial Killers of JFK, RFK, MLK. It's the same group that's been killing all these people ever since they killed Abel. It's the same group that's responsible for all of the deaths, all of the saints. It's what it says in the Bible. I believe what it says in the Bible. The second group was able to whack Kennedy. They had so many shooters in Dealey Plaza and the surrounding blocks that it wasn't funny. I mean, it was obscene. And if you want to know who did the shooting and how many rounds they fired, what their weapons were, the optics and everything, their full names, they're pretty much documented in that book. Um, I would recommend that book. It'll tell you who the names are. However, the author, I believe his name was Grayson or Gayson, he said that he didn't get the name of the female shooter. Um, as far as I can tell, there may have been two female shooters. One of them was not present. And we have a video of her on YouTube in which she is talking about how she was called into action and she didn't feel right. She was trained in Florida and they were called to go assassinate President Kennedy over in Dallas. Uh, she didn't feel right about the phone call and about the job, so she didn't take it. She didn't go. She didn't show up. She didn't travel across country with the other assassins and take part in it. And later, she got a phone call from the head, her handler, if you will, the head of her team, who said, "You should have been there. We killed the president." So this was a big deal. It wasn't small. And the fact they got away with it just shows you how powerful they were. And because they got away with it, they had the audacity to allow their records, their business records, to be examined by Professor Carroll Quigley, who wrote the book Tragedy and Hope. Now, Carroll Quigley had access to their records. He was proud of their efforts. He supported their efforts at One World Government. He was another jackass who thought that man could rule in such a way. The only one who can rule us is Yahweh. Man can't rule us, but they thought that, well, we could pull the world together and this is going to be for the benefit of everybody. I got news for you folks. These people are devils. They're actually literal DNA offspring of a fallen angel. We know there were 200 fallen angels that gathered at Mount Hermon. You'll find those in the books of Enoch. There's 5 books of Enoch. You'll find that there were 200 fallen angels at Mount Hermon that came up with the plan. And the plan was they were going to go into the daughters of men because the daughters of men were fair. And they were going to do this secretly and quietly. And then this war is just about one of those fallen angels who seduced Eve, gave birth to Cain. Cain killed Abel. And today we're dealing with the offspring of this one fallen angel. I don't know what happened to the offspring of the other 199 fallen angels. It's not in the Bible proper from what I can see. There's just a couple of references to those characters in the book of Genesis and some smatterings throughout where you find giants mentioned, people being descendants of giants. And there's several characters in the Bible that are named as being Nephilim, Rephaim. In case you're wondering, the people who killed Kennedy were never brought to justice. President Bush Sr., the one that's dead, treasonous bastard, he says he doesn't remember where he was on the day of the Kennedy assassination. Folks, everybody remembers the day of the Kennedy assassination and knows where they were and what they were doing. I was in 6th grade in Indiana, and I cried heavily that day. It was upsetting for all of us. But they had so much strength. The conspirators had so much power. They were able to hide it and cover it up. And it really still hasn't been solved. President Bush was at work that day in Dealey Plaza. We've got pictures of him. He brought his son to work that day so his son could witness history in the making. So Bush Jr., the younger President Bush, he was there. He knows exactly what happened. His family are major players in all of this. Their real name is not Bush. They're name changers. Their name is Scherf, Scherf. The Scherfs came out of Germany, and Papa Bush actually conspired, worked with the enemy, worked with Adolf Hitler, and he also worked with, he was one of those that worked on the conspiracy that General Smedley Butler wrote about, revealed to Congress, testified about. He went along with their plan until they could find out who all the conspirators were, and Prescott Bush was one of those conspirators. So the purpose of getting nukes for Israel was very simple. Kennedy wouldn't allow them to have nukes. And Kennedy actually told that little son of a bitch that I just have a little trouble. It's very early in the morning. But that fellow who was the prime minister of Israel was a short guy. And within 6 weeks after the Kennedy assassination, he was forced to resign as prime minister of Israel so that his country wouldn't get in trouble. As soon as that other co-conspirator, the vice president, Lyndon Baines Johnson, one of the most evil men ever, as far as he went, he covered the whole thing up rather well, and he gave the Israelis the nukes that they wanted. They got, out of Hanford Refinery alone, they got 1,000 pounds of fissionable material. They got 700 pounds of U-238, uranium-238, and 300 pounds of weapons-grade plutonium. And there was other missing nuclear materials around the country. And on top of that, they got some intact warheads. The W-54 warhead, the warhead of the Davy Crockett tactical nuclear missile. It was a short little missile. It was around when I was a little boy in Germany. These were what they were going to use to hold the Soviets back if they invaded. You should see the pictures of these things. They're pretty small, pretty tiny. There's two different groups of those warheads. One group was rather small, and as a result, it wasn't a very stable, dependable bomb. They beefed it up a little bit and came up with a very stable, dependable bomb. They got those warheads. Many of those warheads. Dr. Preston says that they used those warheads on 9/11. I'm not sure about that. I think they probably did. Dr. Preston is he's a very intelligent man, and he does his research. But Veterans Today, I highly regard him. I highly recommend his writings. I've never met him. Again, the people that are behind this are the Khazarian Mafia. The Khazarian Mafia, the history, Dr. Preston wrote about that at length. If you go to my blog, Giving Psychology Away, by the way, there are 3 blogs, folks. 2 of them are old and archived. I've kept them up there, even though they make the website a little bit unstable. They make WordPress a little bit unstable. I've kept them up there so that you can have access to them. There's some amazing videos and links in there. I don't keep up with that blog. Wish I had a helper who would get in there and take care of that stuff. But there's some interesting videos on there. The Khazarian Mafia, the name stealers, name changers, they're the ones that have taken the identities of about everybody. And so we really can't trust our senses, our data, or anything. We have to question everything. I will tell you this. The law of the land is the original 13th Amendment. We have to reclaim the original 13th Amendment and wipe out all subsequent amendments. The 14th and 15th were passed when the South was occupied. Hence, they weren't represented, so they're null and void. All the legislation based upon them needs to be made null and void. And as far as the subsequent amendments, the 16th Amendment, we never voted on it, folks. That's the income tax amendment. Nobody voted on that son of a bitch. Only what happened is two of our officials announced that it had been passed. That's all it was. The acting Secretary of the Treasury and one other bureaucrat jackass announced that it had been ratified, and we got stuck with that stupid communist graduated income tax. As I understand it, the money doesn't even get paid to us, and the IRS isn't even in our borders. It actually was started on the Philippines, and then they moved it over to Puerto Rico, where it remains today. So we don't really understand these things, but you need to understand Kennedy was assassinated. Two CIA operations. One was a cover, and the other one was the real deal, the real assassination. Several shooters. Lyndon Baines Johnson helped with the cover-up afterwards because he had the power. Those guys that did that were very afraid, including the physician that swapped the bodies around and did the autopsies. He was headed out to Mexico with his family when he found out that the body swap had been accepted, and he felt relieved and went back to his home in California. This stuff is so big. We're such a corrupt nation. Carol Quigley's book is an excellent book. If you read the hardback version, you'll have institutions and names of people. In the paperback versions, those were deleted. But he writes about money and the nature of money, and it will twist your mind because money should be regarded as a debt. Well, that's what they gave us for money. It's not real money, folks. It's just a debt. It's a house of cards. It's fiat currency. It's horrible. We absolutely have to do our best not to get involved in this incursion that's occurred in the Ukraine. They're selling it to us like it's a major war, and it's more important than, it's more important than the Gulf of Tonkin. It's more important than our own borders. To defend our own borders isn't important, but we have to go defend the Ukraine's borders. It's more important than Pearl Harbor, which was another false flag. We knew about that attack 6 weeks in advance, at least, because we had cracked the code. They knew that was coming, folks. President Kennedy was assassinated. A crime was committed. It was never solved. There has been no justice. There's no statute of limitations on murder. We need to bring this up, and we need to try these folks. But we cannot count upon the people in Washington, D.C. to do it because that's not our government. That's a foreign entity that's been superimposed upon us. It's a long story. I'll cover aspects as best I can. But for today, I want you to remember the Prime Minister of Israel ordered that hit because in negotiations, Kennedy made the mistake of saying Israel could have nukes over my dead body. And that little son of a bitch, he decided to take up Kennedy on it. It was much more dangerous than what Kennedy realized. Folks, the fact is that we've been taken over. That's when they took us over completely. At that point, they felt so proud, so safe, so boisterous that they allowed Carol Quigley to have access to their records and to publish Hope and Tragedy, which was originally intended to be 2 volumes, but the publisher felt he could only justify 1 book, so he had to reduce things and cut it down to 1 volume. I would love to have 2 volumes. I would love to have what he had and have that revealed. As far as psychology goes, I found the name of a famous psychologist in there. And I don't know if it's in the paperback. I've got 2 of the hardback copies. Mine are reprints, I believe. That's the most I ever paid for a book. It was $2.25. They wanted $400 for an original. I wish I'd have spent the $400 and gotten the original. I didn't realize that I was getting a reprint. So as you go about your day, I want you to realize that this government that we have in place is not our true government. We're under the Uniform Commercial Code, which was started in 1952. We're not under the Constitution. Um, even our state governments are also corporations. There were no corporations allowed when our nation started. There was a corporation that Ben Franklin started, and I think he was in error, and I think he did that by a major mistake. I think Ben Franklin didn't know what he was doing, or he got suckered into that somehow. And that corporation lay fallow, lay dormant until President Abraham Lincoln became the president of that corporation. And shortly after that, you had the Organic Act, 1870. It was the act that created this government, actually, which was only authorized to rule over the 10 square miles of Washington, D.C. Clearly, they've exceeded their bounds. All right, I'm trying to keep these short, trying to get shorter ones out there so I can get some viewership on this stuff. Folks, if you like these, please like my videos. Please subscribe. Above all, please share these videos. I need to get the word out there. I'm about to start a very salacious kind of clickbait subject. It's going to bring some notoriety to the channel. I don't think I'm quite ready for prime time yet, but got to do it. This Bible of mine that I represent, that I'm fortunate enough to be able to tell you about, the proper name version of the King James Bible, is wonderful. Every time I look at the links, the prices seem to be, and the offerings seem to be a little bit lower. I'm going to be calling the publisher up and discussing this with him. I haven't been incorporating these links very well in my videos. I tried to start a second channel. I'm pretty confused about these things. I would love to be able to set these videos up so that you could actually click a link, maybe a watermark or a banner where you could just touch it and go and buy these Bibles. Why do you need the Bible? The Bible is the foundations for all of Western civilization. As you can see, Western civilization is under attack. We're probably on the way down. We've already lost everything. Our military isn't sent out to take care of our nation and defend our nation. It's out there causing trouble for everybody else. You may think you live in the best country in the world, and you may think they love us out there, folks, but they don't. Certainly, they loved us when there was peace after World War II. They admired us. We had all of the manufacturing here at home. We made things, and the things that we made were quite good. A refrigerator would last 30 years back then. That was pretty common. Since then, everything's been downgraded. We can recover this nation, but the problem is they're going to spray us like bugs. They already spray us like bugs, actually. But they're going to make it worse. They'll probably turn on the weaponized portion of 5G and start playing with us in that. I've been given some warning about that. We really need to divest ourselves completely from their authority. We need to ignore them as soon as possible, and we need to form our own organic state governments. We need to take over county by county. We need to form little groups of 100 men and not let any of these unconstitutional outsiders out. We need our militias. We need those very badly. The word necessary is only mentioned one time in the entire United States Constitution, and that is in the Second Amendment, that a well-regulated militia being necessary. Folks, the Congress isn't even necessary. The Supreme Court isn't necessary. The presidency isn't necessary. What's necessary is that we rule over ourselves. And that means taking up our small arms. That means banding together. It doesn't mean going off half-cocked. It doesn't mean taking action all by our lonesomes, all by ourselves. It means being under authority. It means you have a superior officer. It means you might have officers under you. But every man was a member of the militia. Every able bodied man, citizen, I should say, was a member of the militia. Convicted felons were deprived of their citizenship and their rights to own and bear firearms. Those were very rare back then. That was a very serious matter. Today, with the governments that we have, they've made everything felonies. Some of these states, everything is a felony. They do that so that they can make money off you by incarcerating you, because the federal government pays the states very well for incarcerating people. That's immoral. It's not just unethical; it's immoral. This, if the county people are not willing to pay the expenses to incarcerate a man, then the crime he has committed doesn't merit incarceration. If the people in the county, if the local people aren't upset enough to put him away and pay the bill, then they have no right to do it. We have to recover our common law courts. These things aren't very hard, folks, but it takes being aware. You have to read. You have to get wise, folks. You have to get knowledge. The Bible is really the basis for knowledge in our society. It will help you to keep your mind straight. It will help you to be able to think. It will help you to realize what the priorities are. Folks, I've been blaming the Chinese for this stuff that's been going around. The U.S. Army. The Spanish flu was a biological weapon that escaped from the U.S. Army from Fort Riley, Kansas. It caused the pneumonia that killed a lot of people. This current thing that we have going on, both the nature of the disease and what they claim is the cure, if you will, they're both contraptions. They're both traps. That's about as much as I'm going to say on that. Yeah, folks, it's not the land of the free and the home of the brave. We're pretty much held captive by this central government. They got a stranglehold on us. We need to break that stranglehold. As you go about your day, be grateful. Be grateful for the relative peace that we have today. For the lack of crime, if you're able to not be a victim of crime. For the food you're going to have today, enjoy it. Enjoy your drink. Those are the two things that a man can do, is enjoy his food and enjoy his drink. That's what's written in the Bible. So enjoy that. Dwell on each one of your blessings, each little blessing. Break it down. My Lord, I've got relatively clean clothes. I'm going to get myself a shower today. Water still runs. We've still got electricity. We are able to walk around pretty freely. We believe we're free. We believe we're the greatest nation on the planet. We've been taken over from within. This is no longer the United States of America. We're not living under the Constitution. We've been invaded by foreigners. They've been misusing our military, misusing our wealth, which is what they're doing today. They're trying to misuse it because that's how they plan upon escaping, is by taking our minds off of our troubles here at home. We need to focus inward. It's time for Americans to focus on America. Enjoy.